Hey people, we are back at it again, and in today's video we want to build the registration page for Twitter, now X. So when you log on to twitter.com, this is what you see. We have this interface here, we have these buttons here. When you hover over them, you see some hover effects, some cool hover effects, slight change in color. Sign up with Apple is quite noticeable, and also create account. You can see some hover effects, some cool hover effects. And this is what we want to build in this video. So at the end of the day, this is what we'll be building, something very similar to this. 95% close to the original twitter.com. So when you take cursor over this button, when you hover over it, you see the slight color change, just as the original one. And you hardly will tell any difference between this and the original one. And when we see the original one, you can preview on a smaller screen. And this is how it looks. You can see it's very mobile responsive, and you can preview this on like iPad, and this is how it's going to look on iPad. On a smaller screen like a mobile device, it looks something like this. So it's mobile responsive, and this is what we are also building, and our site is also mobile responsive. We have this over here, so it also looks like this, just like the original one. On a smaller, larger screen like on tablet, this is how it's going to look, just like the original one. So we are building this that is very similar, 95% similar to the original, using HTML and CSS. So let's get started right from here. On my desktop, I create this folder called X project, and inside of it we don't have anything. We have only one images folder with some images of the logos. We'll be using the Apple icon, the Google icon, the X icon, and also the close icon. So you can take a minute to download this, and let's open this with our Visual Studio Code. So over here I have Visual Studio Code open, so I'll trace the directory of that folder which is on the desktop. So desktop, X project, and I'll open. So now the first thing we want to do is to create a file. So create a file here. I'll call it index.html for the HTML file. I'll also create one for the CSS, style.css. So we have the images folder. So right now I'll head over to the index.html page and create the basic HTML boilerplate. We'll just type exclamation and hit tab. So we want to change the document to what we're building. So we say X project. Yes, so we are building X project right here. So after this, let's link the style sheet to the HTML. So type link and style.css. So in the body, we want to write some code over here. So we are going to write the code for the page in the body. So in the body, we'll create a div and give it a class page wrapper. Now let's give the CSS styling for this page wrapper div. So first, let's select the entire document and remove all margin. Remove all paddings as well. Set box sizing to border box. And now we'll select the page wrapper and give it some width, 100%, and height 100%. Let's change this to viewport width. So now we can head over to the index.html and write this code with a VS Code Live Server extension, which I recommend you have. So now you see we have this fresh web page with nothing on it, so we can continue with the HTML. Now in this page wrapper div, we want to create another div and give it a class container. In this container div, we'll create another div and give it a class left right container. You'll get to know why we give it this class very soon. It's inside of this left right container that will have these two sections. One for the left section and also the right section, where we have the logo, the X icon, and also the login interface over here. So inside this div, we want to create two sections. We'll create the first div and give it a class left container. Let's just put something over there. Let's say h1. Okay. And we'll create another and say right container. Say h2 right. So now we can run this with the live server extension again, or just save the code. And you can see we have this over here. So our code is working up to this point. So now let's add the CSS styling. So let's start with the container div. We set width 100%, height 100%, display flex, align items to center, justify content to center. Now let's start the left-right container. We also set width to 100%, display flex, justify content, should be space around. We'll give it some gap, 5 rem. Now when we save this, you can see now we have this and the two sides are further apart. So now we can remove these things and fill it with something more meaningful. In the left side we have the image, and the right side we have all these things over here. So let's add this. So in the left container we can remove this and put the image. Images, you have the X icon there. You can say the alt should be X. And in the right side we need this H1 over here and also this text over here in H3. So make this an H1, and the text is happening now. And after that is an H3, join today. And after this H3 we have these buttons over here, registration buttons. So let's create a div after this H3 and give it a class registration BTN. So now in this reg BTN we want to create these two buttons. The first one to sign up with Google and the second one sign up with Apple. So create a button with a class Google, and in this button we'll link one IMG, which is the Google icon. And after this let's create one span, sign up with Google, and we can say the alt to Google, and we can copy this button and make some changes for the Apple login too. So we can change this to Apple and change the image file path too. So here /Apple, and the alt will also be Apple, and here we'll sign up with Apple instead of Google. And now when we save this, you can see we have this, but everything seems too large, the icons seem too large. So let's give the CSS styling for this. So now let's start with the left container. So select the left container, set display flex, align item center, justify content center. I'll give it some padding, 2 rem should be okay. Now let's style the image inside of this div, which is the X icon. So left container, img, set the width to 17 rem. So now we can start the right container. We give it some padding, 2 rem should be okay. Padding top should be 3 rem. So now let's start the H1 inside the right container. Right container, H1. We'll increase the font size. Send font family to this one. We'll set margin border, some 50 pixels. Letter spacing to 2 pixels. And now let's start the H3. So select the right container again and H3 this time around. As well, we change the font size. Now let's save this and see what we have so far. We have this, but you can see that the image is looking too big. So let's start them. So now let's start the reg BTN inside the right container. Width to 50%. Now let's start the buttons inside of it. We set the width to 300 pixels, height to 40 pixels. We set some border, 1 pixel solid, this RGB color code. So now we have these stylings for it, and let's style the image inside the button. Direct BTN, button IMG. We set width to 18 pixels, and we'll set display to inline block. And when we save the bunch of code we've written so far, you can see we have this. Let's give some margin to the icon from the text. So let's give it some margin right. So now it's looking very okay. So now let's design the section for OR, the OR over here. You can see that it's not just an OR standing on its own. We have some line at the left and also some line at the right before the OR at the center. So let's design this section. So after this button, we want to create another section and call it OR section. And inside of this, we'll create 3 spans. And inside the second one, we'll put the text OR. So let's give it a CSS styling. So over here, let's select this section, the OR section, select the rect BTN. It's a class. We'll give it width 300 pixels. Find item center. So now let's style the spans, the 3 spans we have. So I'll say OR section span. We'll set the width to 130 pixels. 130. Background color, this RGB color code. It's a margin 5 pixels. And when we save this, whoops, we have this. It's like we have more paragraph, we have more spans than we actually need. So in the HTML, let's change this one right here, the span to a paragraph. So a P. Also a P. So now we have what we are looking for. So everything is looking all right up to this point. So now let's add this blue button over here, the create account button, and also the policies over here. Let's add these ones. So after the closing OR section div, we want to create a button with the class new account. And the text is create account. And after this, we'll create a paragraph with the class policies. So this is where we have the terms and conditions. So over here, I'll copy this text from here, and I'll paste it here. And continuing from here, you will see that this is a hyperlink. So terms of service, we'll put that in a hyperlink so we can put an A tag, set the href to a hashtag. Since it's not going anywhere, then we paste that terms of service inside of it. And after this, we write end, space, then a hyperlink again, then set the href as usual to a hashtag because it's not going anywhere. And the text is privacy policy. And after this, with no space, we have a comma. Now space including space, a hyperlink again, as usual, href, cookie use. And when we save this, you can see now we have this over here. So let's add the CSS styling. So now let's select the policies div. It's in the rect BTN. color to this RGB color code. So now let's style the anchor tag inside the paragraph. We'll set text decoration none. Now you can see it's looking a little nice now. So we are basically left with this side. Already have an account and this button over here, and then the policies behind at the bottom over here too. So now in the HTML, after the closing reg btn, let's create another div and give it a class sign up. Now I'd like to make it this way. Yeah. And inside of it, we'll have an h4 with the text already have an account. And after this, we'll create a button with the class sign up btn. And the text is sign up. No, sign in, no sign up. It should be lowercase. I think I should remove this in over here. It should be sign in. So sign in. And also over here, we can change it to sign in. So not sign I. So now let's add the CSS styling for this one. So we select the sign in div and it's inside the right container. So dot sign in, say margin top. And now let's start the h4 inside the sign in div. And after the h4, we have a button. So let's start the button. But you can see the button for this one is virtually the same as all other buttons. So we can copy the stylings for this one and make some changes, few changes to it, and that's it. Over here, we'll copy and paste. And over here, we want to increase the font width to 900. And we'll remove this display flex, align item center, justify content center from here. And we'll set the color to this RGB color code. Now you can see we have this pattern over here. So up until now, we have everything at the right side and everything at the left side, but we do not have the hover effects when we take cursor over the buttons yet. And also this one, when you look at the original page, whenever we hover over this, the links, you see they have this underlining. So we have to put this one too, as well as the colors whenever, the background colors whenever we hover over them. So let's add the hover effects. So let's start with the sign up with the Google button, because that's the first one. You can see we have this hover effect. So after the reg btn img, we'll select the Google button. It's inside the reg btn, so dash Google. That's the class we give to it. And whenever we hover, so colon hover, whenever we hover, we want to change the background color to this RGB color code. And now when we save this and head over to the page, now you can see this hover effect, but it's kind of very sweet. So let's add some transition. The transition will work for all the buttons, so we'll just add it in all the buttons. We say, let's say 0.2 seconds. Ease in and out. So now when we save this, you can see it takes some small delay and it's very smooth in and out. So now let's add the hover effect for the sign up with Apple button. But you can see that the text by default is very large. It has a larger font width than the remaining one. So let's add that first. So over here, after the hover effect for this one, we'll select .apple and we'll give the styling, let's say font size should be, let's say 1 REN, which is the default, and increase the font width to 900. And now you can see that the text is kind of large. So let's add the hover effect now. So after this, you can select it again. Okay. Colon hover. And we change the background color to this RGB color code. So when we save, you can see that it's not working. Okay, so we remove this spacing from here. And now you can see it's working. When we hover over it, it's also working. So now let's create that for the create account button too. But you can see that by default, it has a blue background color and the text is also larger in size than normal. So let's add that first before we add the hover effect. So over here, we'll select it. So rec btn, and the class we gave to it was new account. So we'll set the font size to the default. Background color to this RGB color code. Then we'll remove the border. So now we have this nice looking button over here. So let's add the hover effect. So we'll select it again. Colon hover. We'll set the background color to this RGB color code. And now you can see the hover effect. It has a darker color, blue color whenever we hover over it. So let's add that for the hyperlinks inside the policies. So we move to the policies. So we select the policies again. We set text decoration to underline. And now this is working for it too. So we are getting somewhere. So we are left with the last one. So we are left with this one, which also has the same hover effect like the sign up with Google button. So over here we can locate it. So on hover, change the background color to this RGB color code. Then we'll save. And now you can see we have this hover effect for it too. So now we're basically done with this section. So what we are left with is the policies over here, these ones over here. So in the HTML, after the closing left right container div, we want to create another div and give it a class links. And it's inside this div that we'll have all these links over here. So the first one is about. And in the HTML, in this links div, we'll create an anchor tag and set the href to a hashtag because it's not going anywhere, and set the text to about. And so we have to do it for the remaining text, all these text over here. But I don't think I should be recording while writing this thing. So I'll pause and take it from the where I'm done. Yes, so this is it. I've inserted everything that I need to insert. The only thing that I think might be a problem is the copyright sign. If you don't know how to do it, on Mac is Option and G, and on Windows is Control Alt and C. So you hold down Control Alt and C on Windows, and on Mac hold down Option and G and the G key. So that's it. So let's start this in the CSS. So over here we'll select the links div, which is inside the container div. So set width 100%. Then we'll set padding 1 rem top and bottom and 2 rem left and right. Now select the anchor tags inside the link div. So links, the links A. We set text decoration none. And now when we run this code, you see we have this problem over here. We see it align flex. That's because we set display flex in the container div. So what we'll do is that we'll set flex direction to column. And now that problem should be solved. But it also has this hover effect. Whenever we hover over it, the underlining. We see the underlining. So let's add that. So we select links. We set text decoration. So now when we hover over it, you see the underlining. So that's basically it. And we are basically done with this section, except for the mobile responsivity. Oh my goodness, this is join. What kind of this thing is this one? Joining. So join. Sorry folks. And for the mobile responsiveness, we'll have to use CSS Media Query. So over here, after this one, let's leave some space. We'll type at media. Then we'll set the device width max width 950 pixels. That should be like a tablet. So any styling we put inside this media query will get executed whenever the screen size is reduced to something from 950 pixels and below. So we first want to take the page wrapper and set height to fit content. And we'll take the container div too. And also the height will be fit content. Initially we set the height to 100 viewport width, viewport height. But when we minimize the screen, the content size will be larger, will be longer than that. So we have to make it fit dynamically. And after this, we want to take the left-right container. So now let's start the left container. So we see on a smaller screen, we will remove all paddings for the left container, set display flex, align item center, and we'll leave some padding at the top. And we also have to reduce the size of the image, the icon. We give some margin to the bottom. So when we save this and we minimize the screen, once it hits that level, that the 950 pixels width, we see that the orientation changes. When we expand it again, it changes. So this is working exactly the way we want it to. So now let's start the right container too. Justify content should be left. And let's remove the align items here. It shouldn't be align items. We'll set flex direction to column. Now let's start the H1 inside the right container div. So right container H1. So reduce the font size. And give some margin at the top. So when we save this one, now when we reduce the screen size, you see that everything looks very well. But we want it to have different styling whenever it's reduced to a minimum width. It's very like on the smallest screen possible. So let's define another media query for that one. So after this media query, we'll set another media query again. So we say at media, say 500 pixels. We'll take the page wrapper div and set margin left to 10 pixels. Then after that, we'll take the left-right container to 30 pixels. Now we'll take the left container IMG, reduce the image size further. So we set the width to 2 pixels, 2 REM this time around. So now we'll take the right container, the H1 inside of it. So reduce the font size further to 2.3 REM. Now let's select the H3, so the right container, H3. We'll set the font size to 1.3 REM. And when we save this, and we come here and we minimize the screen, so that when it hits the 950 threshold, everything gets well. And when it gets back a little more, everything gets better again. So this is how it looks now. Over here, just as it is, you can see. So when we increase it, like in this mode, it looks very bad. And when we decrease it further, it looks better. So folks, this is basically how we've come to the conclusion of this video, how we've been able to replicate to some extent the Twitter login page using HTML and CSS. If you find any value in this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this one. If you have any questions, please do leave it in the comment section below. As always, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye.